If y'all thought that we have found out everything there is to know about Diddy and his freakoffs girl, you are in for a shock of a lifetime. Because according to Diddy's former assistant, the things we know about Diddy's shenanigans are allegedly just the tip of the iceberg. The real situation is way worse than we know. According to the assistant Phil Pines, Diddy used to force him to help set up freak-off parties in advance. And it was no small feat. Phil also had some wild stories of Diddy allegedly forcing him to buy all sorts of illegal substances, if you know what I mean. And get this, Phil isn't just making some wild claims out of the side of his mouth. He came with receipts. I'm talking voice notes, text messages, and all that messy stuff. Looks like Phil just might be the key to taking Diddy down. So let's break this down. According to reports, Phil was Diddy's assistant from 2019 to 2021. And when I tell y'all that he saw some really crazy things, I'm not even joking. To nobody's surprise, Phil claimed that Diddy used to make him organize freak-offs, even though Diddy referred to them as Wild King Nights. Child, one thing about Diddy, he sure does know how to name his nights. Again, it's not surprising that Phil had to help Diddy prepare for the Wild King Nights. Given everything we know about the freak-offs, they required a lot of planning, both before and after. Because y'all know that the aftermath required a lot of care. According to the federal indictment documents that the feds released after they arrested Diddy, there was a lot of thought and planning that went into the freak-offs. They were so extensive that they required careful coordination. The court document stated, in arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial workers across state lines and internationally. Freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days, and often involved multiple commercial workers. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant, sometimes unbeknownst to the victims. Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in sex acts with commercial workers. After freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received 4 fluids to recover from the physical exertion and substance use. When Cassie sued Diddy, she went into extensive detail about the freak-offs, and it sounded like a nightmare. She painted a clear picture of the debauchery that went down, writing in her lawsuit. The first time Mr. Combs hired a man and brought the man to his home in Los Angeles, the man, Mr. Combs, and Ms. Ventura wore masquerade masks and ingested substances. Mr. Combs directed Ms. Ventura to perform intimate acts with this man while he watched the entire encounter. It lasted multiple days. Mr. Combs began to call the arrangement a freak-off or a. Cassie also revealed that not only did Diddy allegedly use substances, but he also forced her to use them. She wrote, Mr. Combs always supplied Ms. Ventura with copious amounts of substances before and during the freak-offs. Ms. Ventura was given ecstasy, GHB, ketamine, and alcohol in excessive amounts during these encounters, which allowed her to dissociate. It became commonplace to get 4 fluids in the days after a freak-off to recover from the excessive substances pushed upon her. Diddy denied the claims and accused Cassie of blackmail, with his lawyer stating, he vehemently denies these offensive and outrageous allegations. Ms. Ventura's demand of $30 million under the threat of writing a damaging book about their relationship was unequivocally rejected as blatant blackmail. Despite withdrawing her initial threat, Ms. Ventura has now resorted to filing a lawsuit riddled with baseless and outrageous lies, aiming to tarnish Mr. Combs' reputation and seeking a payday. However, he settled the lawsuit within a day. For a lot of people, this was the confirmation they needed to believe that Cassie might have been telling the truth. Anyone who believed that Diddy might have chilled out over the years, and that the whole freak-off thing was just something he did to Cassie because he hated her or something, well, from the stories Phil is now telling, it looks like not only did Diddy allegedly keep up with the bad behavior after Cassie, but it might have even gotten worse. Which is wild to imagine given the crazy things Cassie laid out in her lawsuit. Cassie escaped from Diddy in 2018, and Phil worked with Diddy from 2019 to 2021. This means that Cassie was not Diddy's only alleged victim. According to Phil, who also filed a lawsuit against Diddy, the so-called Wild King Nights were a frequent occurrence, happening more often than you would think. He said, look, there's partying and then there's partying. There were guests who would frequently come over and participate in these intimate situations. Sometimes you would see new faces and sometimes you'd see new faces come in and never see them again. He also claimed that some of the women who attended were so shaken by whatever they saw at the parties that he had to physically escort them out. He gave an example of one such occasion saying, "I remember a time when Diddy told me to come up and grab one of his guests' bags, take her down to the car and drive her to her hotel. I don't know what took place. All I can say is that when I brought her down to the car she was shaking, physically shaking.
He had a laundry list of items that included lights, alcohol, ketamine, Molly. Those requests started to become more. A lot of times you would have him with a younger female, and there's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand that.
Didn't look like how she looked the night before. She said something to the effect of, "I've never done anything like this before." But that's not all.
Phil, I need some Cialis. Can you give me 20 Xanax, please? Hey, Phil, I need a plan B.
I remember hearing the words, "Prove your loyalty to me, King." He grabbed me by the shoulders, pushed me to a girl.
Also kind of sounds like Diddy tried to force Phil to participate in the Wild King nights, which again wouldn't be surprising considering what Lil Rod said in his lawsuit. Lil Rod claimed that Diddy allegedly touched him against his wishes, and when he called him out on it, Diddy claimed that it was nothing but horseplay. So, fans are kind of buying Phil's claims about Diddy because it tracks with everything we've already heard. To nobody's surprise, Diddy's lawyers immediately jumped in to defend him and deny the allegations. They said, "No matter how many lawsuits are filed, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never assaulted anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. We live in a world where anyone can file a lawsuit for any reason. Fortunately, a fair and impartial judicial process exists to find the truth, and Mr. Combs is confident he will prevail in court." Phil's claims left fans shook and they left comments saying, "The assistant brought receipts. He had text messages, voice notes and video. He came prepared. OMG, the voice notes Diddy was sending to Phil and what he was requesting,